The evening air in Verona was crisp, scented with jasmine from the terrace gardens, and the city lights shimmered across the Adige River like molten gold. I arrived at the Palazzo degli Albani, a stately Renaissance villa perched atop the hill, where my brother Lorenzo's wedding was to take place. The ceremony promised opulence. My family thrived on spectacle, but what I felt as I crossed the threshold was unease, a cold weight pressing on my chest. The marble floors echoed beneath my heels, and chandeliers scattered their soft amber light, warming the grand hall, but not my anticipation. Something had shifted in the undercurrents of our family, and I knew, with a visceral certainty, that tonight would reveal truths long buried. I had been married to Matteo for nearly 3 years, a man whose charm was effortless and whose ambitions aligned with my own. Our marriage had been a careful construction, a union of intellect and strategy as much as affection. But lately, there had been small fissures, late nights at the office, secretive phone calls, a glance that lingered too long at someone else. I dismissed them then, unwilling to imagine the full betrayal. But tonight, as the doors to the inner courtyard opened and the guests took their places under strings of fairy lights, I would see everything laid bare. The courtyard was a scene from a dream, an Italian winter softened by the mild breeze. Guests sipped Prosecco, laughing under lanterns that swung gently above, casting pale gold halos onto the cobblestones. My brother, Lorenzo, stood at the far end of the aisle, his tailored navy suit impeccable, his expression a mixture of nerves and pride. Beside him, Isabella, his bride, glimmered in an ivory gown that caught the light with every subtle movement. The music began, soft strings mingling with the murmur of the crowd, and I moved toward the terrace to check my coat, a deliberate step toward the library wing where Matteo had slipped away during cocktail hour. I should have seen it then. The flicker of movement between the velvet curtains, the hush that fell over the corner where shadows gathered. But nothing could have prepared me for the tableau that awaited. Matteo's hand on another woman's waist, his lips brushing against hers in a stolen, intimate rhythm, and her unmistakable laughter. Isabella, my sister-in-law, the woman meant to be the emblem of our family's joy. The shock hit me first, a jolt of disbelief, followed by the visceral, burning ache of betrayal that twisted my stomach. I stepped closer, silence wrapped around me like a shroud, and the world contracted into the three of them. Matteo saw me first. His eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, I believed panic would betray him. But then, impossibly, he smiled, a slow, deliberate curl of his lips, and winked. The gesture was not a plea, nor an apology, nor fear. It was a signal, loaded with meaning I did not yet understand. "Don't worry," he seemed to say. "The main event is about to begin." That wordless promise, the calm in the eye of his duplicity, sent a shiver down my spine. I turned to watch Isabella, whose composure shattered in the smallest fraction of a second, her cheeks flushing under the winter's chill. She had thought this tryst would remain secret, hidden beneath the grandeur and chaos of the wedding, but I had caught it. And in that instant, the entire architecture of trust, family, and allegiance collapsed into fragments of fire and glass. The betrayal was not sudden. It had been simmering beneath years of careful alliances and silences, and now it demanded reckoning. I retreated into the shadows, my mind alight with cold, calculated fury. My marriage, my brother's celebration, my family's carefully curated image, all had been poisoned by deceit. But I was not naive, nor would I act in haste. The art of revenge, I knew, was patience, the slow gathering of evidence and opportunity until the moment of exposure was inevitable and devastating. And tonight, Verona itself would bear witness. The ceremony proceeded with an eerie grace. Guests took their seats, oblivious to the storm behind the curtains, and Lorenzo's vows flowed with practiced emotion. I stood near the back, my hands folded, eyes scanning the room, memorizing faces and reactions. Every laugh, every tear, every glance became a piece of a puzzle I intended to complete. Matteo, for all his charm and bravado, was a mark now. Isabella, in her naive arrogance, had underestimated my vigilance. And Lorenzo, my brother, remained a bright star of oblivion, the unwitting centerpiece of their collusion. After the ceremony, as the guests migrated to the banquet hall, I followed discreetly, watching the couple seated beneath the vaulted ceilings, candlelight reflecting off crystal glasses and polished silver. Matteo leaned close to Isabella, whispering, laughing, a private performance that he believed shielded by propriety. I noted their gestures, the ease with which they moved together, the subtle, intimate exchanges that betrayed their complicity. Every detail would be catalogued, stored, and deployed with the precision of a scalpel. Over the next hours, I executed the first phase of my plan. Public exposure had to be crafted carefully, a revelation timed to inflict maximum social and psychological damage without endangering my own reputation. During the champagne toast, I raised my glass alongside Matteo, smiling warmly as if the secret of his infidelity were unknown to me. My eyes, however, betrayed nothing, scanning the room for potential witnesses, cameras, and allies. I had planted a discreet photographer, a master of subtle documentation, to capture the moments between Matteo and Isabella. The brush of a hand, the shared smile, the whisper that sent shivers of impropriety through the air. By the time dessert was served, I had gathered enough evidence to orchestrate the next stage. I excused myself under the pretense of fatigue, slipping into the library adjacent to the terrace. There, I compiled the photographs, time-stamped messages, and incriminating social exchanges into a sleek, digital dossier. My pulse was steady, my breathing controlled. Years of observation and careful planning had prepared me for this. The thrill of impending retribution coiled within me, a venomous serpent ready to strike at the heart of betrayal. The climax arrived not with spectacle, but with deliberate, poised confrontation. Matteo and Isabella had retired to the balcony, believing their indiscretions hidden beneath the Venetian night. I approached silently, the winter air biting at my cheeks, and called out my husband's name. The words echoed over the tiled roofs, carrying with them authority and inevitability. He turned, the half-smile fading into the recognition of defeat. I held out the dossier, letting the photographs and messages spill into the moonlight. Isabella's gasp was sharp, piercing the gentle hum of the city below, and Matteo's composure cracked ever so slightly, a fissure in the facade he had maintained for too long. "You promised loyalty," I said, my voice cold, deliberate, carrying across the terrace. "You swore allegiance to me, and yet here you are, betraying not only our marriage but our family." I let the words linger, a palpable weight that pressed against the night air. Isabella's hands trembled as she reached for an explanation, but none came. Matteo's eyes darted to the doorway, the guests, the city below. "The main event," he whispered, echoing the earlier wink. But this time it was hollow, stripped of charm or menace. I smiled faintly, recognizing the irony. He had misjudged me, and now the tables had turned with precision. The final act of revenge unfolded with public clarity. At the wedding reception, I arranged for the presentation of the evidence to select family members, the photographer documenting the confrontation in real time. Whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs into shock, and shock into a quiet, suffocating tension that enveloped Matteo and Isabella. My brother, Lorenzo, absorbed the betrayal with stunned disbelief, his gaze flickering between his wife, my husband, and me. There was no shouting, no dramatics. Only the weight of truth settling heavily in the room, like snow drifting through the winter air, cold and inescapable. Matteo attempted to explain, to charm his way out, but the clarity of the evidence rendered every word impotent. Isabella's composure crumbled, her laughter of triumph from earlier replaced by shame. I remained composed, arms crossed, observing the destruction wrought by their own choices, the meticulous execution of a long-delayed justice. The room felt suspended in that moment, the candles flickering, the winter cityscape visible through the arched windows, and the enormity of the betrayal laid bare. The denouement was quiet, but no less powerful. Matteo and Isabella were escorted from the villa, their social standing and credibility eroded by the silent, precise revelation of their actions. Lorenzo, devastated yet tempered by the dignity of the truth, turned to me, eyes wide not with anger, but with recognition of the depth of my resolve. I had not only survived betrayal but transformed it into a force of accountability, a testament to patience, observation, and the slow, deliberate cultivation of power. Weeks later, the city of Verona resumed its indifferent rhythm. The Adige glimmered beneath the muted winter sun, trams rattled across cobblestones, and the Palazzo degli Albani returned to quiet grandeur. I walked through the halls of our family home, the echoes of the wedding night lingering, a subtle hum beneath the daily life of aristocratic Vienna. My marriage remained intact, fortified by loyalty and insight. My alliances, carefully nurtured, stood unbroken. Matteo's betrayal was a memory etched in photographic clarity, a reminder that even the most intimate deceptions could be transformed into instruments of justice when wielded with precision. The experience reshaped my understanding of power, family, and trust. Revenge was not about spectacle, but about meticulous orchestration, the patience to wait, the discernment to observe, and the courage to act decisively when the moment demanded. Love and loyalty, when aligned with strategy and foresight, became unassailable forces, capable of withstanding even the most intimate acts of treachery. Years later, in the quiet study of our Vienna apartment, overlooking the river as winter light glinted across its silver surface, I reflected on the events that had defined my marriage, my family, and my own evolution. The betrayal of Matteo and Isabella, the subtle complicity of circumstance, and the deliberate unfolding of retribution had forged a clarity of purpose that would guide every future decision. The lessons were indelible. Trust must be earned, betrayal cannot be ignored, and revenge, when executed with precision, becomes a tool not of destruction, but of restoration. In the end, I understood the true meaning of power. It was silent, deliberate, and irrevocable. Betrayal had arrived at my doorstep under the guise of intimacy and secrecy, but it had left transformed, contained, and neutralized by foresight, patience, and unyielding resolve. And as the evening sun cast long shadows across the frozen waters of Verona, I smiled, knowing that I had not only survived the night of deceit, but had emerged sovereign over my own life, my family, and the intricate web of loyalty, ambition, and human frailty that defined us all.